Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Janet. I am working through the King James Bible. Today I'm in the book of Samuel, in the second book, and I'm working today through chapters 15, 16 and 17. So get yourself comfortable and we're going to get started. So we left off yesterday in chapter 14 where David the king and his son Absalom came together. You know, he'd killed his brother, Absalom had killed his own brother, and he was in exile for a few years, came back to Jerusalem. The king didn't want to see him for a couple of years, and then they eventually unite. So it seems like a really lovely ending to chapter 14. But we do know that God has kind of put trouble on David for his sin, and so this story is where it starts to turn again. So in chapter 15, we see David's son, Absalom, who we've said before is a very handsome man and he's obviously very charismatic. He gets a team of people together and he positions himself right at the gate, sort of entrance to the court of the king's palace. Now he's positioned himself there because he wants to greet all the people that are going to come to the king and go there for judgment or whatever it is, they'll be coming to the king, and he sort of meets them there. And he greets them and he said, look, there is no judge. I am the judge here and I'm going to offer you justice. And he sort of holds their hand, he kisses them, and he just makes them feel very special. You know, he's really good at this kind of customer service. He's become the gatekeeper, so everybody meets him first before they meet the king. And this beautiful, kind and caring manner that he has with the people soon makes them fall for him. You know, their hearts are with him. They start to really see Absalom as such a prominent part to King David, and possibly more so. So Absalom keeps this up, you know, and he starts growing in momentum. More and more people, and the Israelites are starting to, you know, their hearts are starting to connect with him. Unbeknown to King David, all of this is going on. So after a while of King David's reign, we're talking 40 years, Absalom goes to the king and he says to him, you know, I need to go back to Jessur in Syria, which is where he was in exile when he killed his brother. He'd gone there. Now he tells his father, David, that he made a vow there with the Lord that he would go back. And so David said to him, you are granted to go. Now, this isn't the truth, this is a lie, because what he is doing, he gets spies to go into each of the Israelite tribes, there's 12 tribes, remember, and blow a trumpet saying, Absalom rules in Hebron. Now, this is like a popularity contest, you know, he's bringing his fame, the people really love him, and he's got his trumpets going throughout, they're getting to know his face, he's become the front man now, and the people are calling for him. And to such a degree that David's people in his household recognize this and warn David, oh my goodness, this is going on. The people are coming. They want him now as ruler over them. And David, without wanting to cause any war between him and his son, decides to flee and leave his palace, leaving 10 of his concubines there to look after it while he's gone. So David gathers up his household, other people, other tribes that want to follow him, come with him. And this guy called Ittai, who is a new foreigner, and his people have just joined with him. And David says, you know, why come with us? We don't know where we're going. You stay with the new king that is to be. And this guy says, no, you are the king I want to follow. I am loyal to you. And he sticks with him, and they carry on with him too. Now David heads out with the people to the wilderness. Now there is a couple of priests with him, Zadok and Abiathar and their sons, and they're carrying the Ark of the Covenant. And David says, look, I don't want you to bring this with me. It's not meant to come with me. Take it back to where it belongs, back to Jerusalem. That's where the Lord belongs, and if I'm meant to be with him, the Lord will make that happen. Now he advises that they go back with the Ark and sort of be like spies, stay in that area, keep an eye on what is going on there. So they go back and they take the Ark of the Covenant with them, while David heads up to Mount Olive. Now Absalom will have counsel with him, this one guy, I can't pronounce his name, so I'm just going to call him the counselor in this. If you want to know exactly what the name is, just read the link under this video, click on it, and you will get all the details for chapter 15. So he's got his counselor, who was counselor to King David, with him. Now Hushai is with David, and he says to him, I want you to go back as well. I want you to spy and go amongst the council. I'm hoping that they will foolishly advise my son. You go there and like keep it right. Another one to spy basically and be within the king's council around him. It's a good idea really for David doing this. So that's what he does. He goes back. He wants to stay with David, but David advises him he wants him to go back. So he's a loyal servant and he does as King David asks. Then David goes up this mount and he prays, he prays to the Lord. He prays for the council to be foolish. And we close this chapter hearing that Absalom enters into Jerusalem. So he's taking up that place of his father. It's kind of like a hostile takeover, really. So there we have it. So now we're going to move into chapter 16. And we see David going up the top of this mount and he meets up with Ziba. Now Ziba is the servant of the last remaining son of Jonathan. Remember, he was the last descendant of Saul really that could take up the reign of king, but he didn't want to. He went into kind of exile and just was hiding and didn't really want to be, and he's lame-footed, he's not that well. And Ziba comes to David. He's at this mount and he has donkeys with him, he has bread with him, he has wine with him, and David says, like, what is all this? And he said, oh Lord, I bring you all of these offerings that basically belonged to Jonathan's son. And he said, why aren't you with your master? And he said, well, he's just hoping that things will pan out badly and then he'll become king and regain his rightful place, because he believes that he wants to get back into that position that Saul was. So David feels kind of like he's been let down again by him, because he was so kind to this guy. He was a brother with Jonathan, even though it wasn't his brother. They felt like brothers, and he wanted to do kindness to any family members that had remained throughout the war. This was the one guy who had, so he offers him this beautiful place to stay at, and to have servants around him, and now he thinks he's basically, gone against him. So he says to this Ziba, what your master has given you is now yours. Now they're travelling, David's people and him, and they come to this place called Bahuriam, and they see a man called Shimei. Now Shimei is part of Saul's descendants, and he is not happy with him. He is cursing David and saying, you're a bloodthirsty man. It's no wonder that your son has taken over your reign. You don't deserve him. He's throwing stones at him and his people, and his foot soldiers almost want to get this guy. And David just says, no, leave him, let him do what he wants to do. The Lord has obviously put him in our path for a reason. Just allow it to be. We'll walk past, we'll get through it. And they do. They ignore him. They go past. Obviously they're getting thrown stones, and they eventually come to this river, and that's where they rest, just to rejuvenate. Now meanwhile, back in Jerusalem, do you remember the guy Hosea, who David had sent back as a spy to be part of that council? Well, he now is sort of playing the role. He's pretending to really support King Abasol. He's going, long live the king, long live the king. And Abasol sees him and he knows he's part of his father's tribe, and he's saying, why aren't you with King David? And he says, I follow the Lord, and the Lord has obviously brought you here, so I will follow you. So he's getting into position into that council area. So he's, because Abasol needs advisors, so he's going to become one of his advisors along with the other counselor already there. So the counselor that's already there and that he's listening to the most right now, he advises that he sleep with David's concubines. He thinks that'll give him more power over the people. It'll just show that you're never going to get back into this position kind of thing. So Abasol listens to this counsel, and he gets a tent in front of all of the people of Israel to see, that he is becoming king, and he sleeps with his father's concubines. And this closes chapter 16. And we open chapter 17 with more advice, not so good advice from Abisol's counselor. And he's saying now, we need to get moving. Your father, he'll be out there, he'll be in the wilderness, he'll be weak. This is an ideal time, to get him and to go straight for the king, strike him out. Then all his people will come back to us. We won't have a civil war, we won't have this divide, and it's the best time now to go and do this. And Saul's listening, but he says, okay, let's see what Hosea says, which is David's spy in there. So he asks him. So he's got to quickly come up with a plan to counteract this and give David more time, really, because his son is wanting to wage war on him. And he says, look, it's not great to go now. If you go now, it's like your father is out there like a bear with a sore head. He is a strong warrior of a man, and his men are valiant. If you go for them now, you're going to be going at them when they're at the most powerfulest. So he's using the old David, that the man that killed Goliath, to go into his son's mind. So he'll think, okay, all right. And he said, what we really need to do is gather all of the tribes of Israel. We need to get a big army together and then go for him. And Absalom decides to listen to Hosea. He sees it, and the people of Israel, they agree this is the best thing to do. So it gives David more time to get ready, and for Hussein to get a message to David to let him know this is what's happening, that his son is on pursuit, he's going to come for him, needs to get moving across the Jordan River, and that will give him more time. So he does. So Hosea sends messages, they get to David, they let him know, and he quickly moves from where he is in the wilderness and gets across that river. Now, Abisol's main counselor, who had given him the advice, to go for David straight away, once he realizes that Hussein he's taken his advice, he's in the middle. If things go bad between whichever, he's in a pretty difficult spot. If suddenly King David comes back, he'll be killed, instantly, because he's a traitor. So he knows this, and he gets his things in order, and he hangs himself. So he kind of does the job for King David. He's getting out of it because I guess he just doesn't know where the war's going to go, and he has this fear. So Abisol gathers the people of Israel, the tribes, his army ready, and he goes in hot pursuit after his father over that Jordan River, and they camp at Gilead, which is a very prominent place. A lot of things have happened in Gilead. He also assigns a captain who is called Amasa, and he is a son of a niece of David's. And Joab, David's captain, who always goes out to war with him, his chief army, he's his cousin. And we close this chapter knowing that whilst David is in Gilead, there are some supporters there of him, and they offer them food and drink, and just support. So he's starting to build up a few more people in that area, which is what he's going to need. So we will surely see what is going to happen soon in the rest of this book of Samuel 2. So thank you for being here. Thanks for listening, and we'll carry on the journey in tomorrow's video. Take care for now. Bye.